you mentioned that science has left out what's non-objective, but
Right,
but our worldview, the scientific worldview, also doesn't allow for gods.
right.
It doesn't allow for that which is higher than man.
Well, I only myself came into the full significance of this recently, and that was when I looked carefully at molecules as an object lesson. People know more about molecules. Chemists can even synthesize some of these complicated molecules, and they know an amazing amount about DNA, so it's a good place to start. But here with molecules, there was this impossible to answer question of how did the proteins jump to the DNA, or how did the proteins evolve independently of the need for them. You had to postulate that there was something pulling from the creature or from the DNA that synthesized these proteins that were needed for the creature. And you could call it a pull from above, because the higher order molecules are above the proteins. And it was at that point that I had this dream about astrology that made me use the astrology to help me on that problem. I called the ghost of astrology coming to remind me about what the state of Denmark was, you see. In this case, it was, we had forgotten that our true father had been displaced by this new authority, science. The true father being the gods. Now, so that, in a sense, authorized me to go ahead, pull out the stops, and go ahead on the pull from above in human terms. It wouldn't be in molecular terms anymore. It has to be in some kind of beings beyond us who are pulling the strings, changing fate to produce a scenario, or in many scenarios, any rate a course that moves us further in our evolution than we would go on our own steam. And hence the application of astrology in this larger meaning, a more I'd like to get just the right word, if you don't mind my thinking. Instead of just taking bits and pieces from astrology that are useful to what I want to do, as though I want to make a workbench, so I borrow these pieces from a Greek temple that's obsolete and make my whatever it is here and now. Show a little respect for what the whole temple was created for. The temple that was created long before I wanted my little workshop. And that was in recognition of these powers beyond man. It's not just the Greeks, it was Egyptians, and all races built their temples to the gods. And the usefulness of astrology in the modern context is you can prove it to yourself. Don't expect to prove it in the scientific way. I mean, show that, 5,000 surgeons are influenced by Mars, because it doesn't work in that way. But you can verify it in your own choice.